What if I told you that the taste of KFC fried chicken isn't the same everywhere? That the crispy, golden brown bite you know from your own city could be dramatically different just a few thousand miles away? In fact, the secret recipe of 11 herbs and spices that Colonel Sanders built his empire on might not even be the star of the show in some countries. Because KFC isn't just selling chicken, it's selling comfort food. And comfort food means something unique in every culture. So what does Kentucky Fried Chicken look like when it stops being so Kentucky? Before we dive into this delicious journey across borders, if you find yourself enjoying stories like this, about food, culture, and the hidden ways the world works, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button. It really helps us bring you more content like this. Let's start with China. Because if there is one place that shows just how far KFC is willing to bend its menu, it's here. When the first KFC opened in Beijing in 1987, it was more than just a fast food restaurant. It was a symbol of modernity, a taste of the West in a country that had been closed off for decades. But here's the twist. Instead of sticking to its American roots, KFC did something almost no other global chain had the courage to do. It reinvented itself around local tastes. Today, in China, you can order congee, a warm rice porridge with pickles and pork, for breakfast at KFC. You can bite into egg tarts, shrimp burgers, spicy hot pot chicken, and even drink soy milk straight from their menu. The brand that Americans see as greasy indulgence has, in China, become almost a family restaurant. And it worked, so well in fact, that KFC now has more outlets in China than in the United States itself. But why does this matter? Because it shows us something bigger. Food isn't universal. What feels indulgent in one culture feels comforting in another. And if a global giant like KFC wants to survive, it has to speak the language of the local stomach. Travel west to Japan, and you find an even stranger story. There, KFC isn't just a place to grab fried chicken. It's Christmas dinner. Yes, Christmas. A marketing campaign in the 1970s accidentally tapped into the Japanese fascination with Western traditions. The idea of eating a bucket of chicken with your family became associated with holiday cheer. Now, every December, millions of Japanese people pre-order KFC weeks in advance, standing in long lines just to secure their holiday feast. Imagine that. In the US, it's turkey at Thanksgiving. In Japan, it's KFC at Christmas. One product, two worlds, two completely different meanings. This raises an interesting question. How much of what we call authentic food is actually shaped by culture and clever marketing? If fried chicken can become Christmas dinner in Tokyo, what else can food become when it crosses borders? In India, the transformation of KFC goes even deeper. Here, beef and pork are cultural minefields, so the company had to walk carefully. Instead of trying to force its classic menu, KFC India leaned into vegetarian options and spicy flavors. You'll find paneer wraps, veggie zingers, and rice bowls loaded with curry. Some of their chicken is marinated with fiery masalas that would shock anyone expecting the mildness of American fried chicken. And yet, it's still KFC. It's still that red logo, that smiling colonel, that paper bucket. But the soul of the food is unmistakably Indian. Think about that for a second. KFC's success isn't built only on its recipe. It's built on its flexibility. The ability to let go of its identity just enough to adopt another without losing the essence of who it is. Almost like a traveler who always carries a familiar suitcase, but fills it with whatever the local market offers. And then, of course, there's Africa. In South Africa, KFC is one of the biggest fast food players in the country. But here, the menu adapts again. Spicy wings with peri-peri sauce, maize-based sides, and even street food-inspired snacks like the Chesa Nyama meal, which takes its name from township barbecue culture. Instead of clinging to the idea of fried chicken as a foreign import, KFC wrapped itself in the flavors that already belong to the people. So what do we learn from all this? Globalization doesn't mean sameness. It means translation. KFC isn't erasing culture. It's reflecting it, feeding it back in a familiar package. Which leads to a paradox. The most successful American fast food brand abroad doesn't feel all that American anymore. But wait, before you think this is just a nice story about clever marketing, consider the risk. Because every time KFC bends its menu, it risks losing its core. Too much local adaptation, and it stops being recognizable. Too little, and it feels alien. Balancing this tension is a high-stakes game. Imagine walking into a KFC in another country and not seeing fried chicken at all. Would you still trust it? Would you still feel the Colonel's promise? There have been times when this gamble failed. In France, for instance, KFC struggled. The French palate, deeply tied to fresh bread, wine, and cheese, wasn't charmed by the heavy American-style fried chicken. Attempts to localize sometimes fell flat, making the brand feel like an awkward guest at the French table. In Germany, too, the company had to wrestle with skeptical consumers who associated fried chicken with something cheap rather than indulgent. Global dominance doesn't come without battle scars. And yet, one could argue that this struggle is part of the fascination. Every country leaves its fingerprints on the brand, and every menu item becomes a little window into how that culture interprets comfort food. In Thailand, it's the heat, spicy Thai chili flavors coating the chicken. In the Philippines, it's gravy served in abundance, even with rice. In Jamaica, it's fiery, jerk-seasoned variations. In Russia, KFC once even experimented with mushroom-flavored items, leaning into a national obsession with forest foods. The question then becomes, is KFC really one brand anymore? Or is it 1,000 different brands stitched together under one red and white banner? If you strip away the name, would someone in Tokyo even recognize the KFC that someone in Kentucky grew up with? But here's where the story takes another twist. Because while the menus are different, the experience is strangely consistent. The branding, the bucket, the smell of fried chicken in the air, all of it creates a sense of familiarity, even if the flavors are new. It's like listening to a song played in another language. The melody is the same, the lyrics change, but you know it instantly. There's a deeper psychology here. People crave novelty, but they also crave comfort. KFC taps into both by offering something recognizable, but dressed in local flavor. It's a delicate alchemy of trust and surprise. And it reveals something profound not just about fried chicken, but about how we, as humans, consume culture itself. We want things to feel ours, but not completely foreign. We want to taste the world without losing the anchor of home. Now imagine yourself traveling. You're in an unfamiliar city, surrounded by languages you don't understand, smells you don't recognize. And then, on a crowded street, you see that familiar red bucket. Do you step inside for comfort, or do you resist, chasing authenticity? Either way, the fact that you even have the choice shows the genius of localization. But there's also a hidden danger here. When brands become too good at blending in, they risk blurring cultural lines. If KFC is Indian in India, Chinese in China, and Jamaican in Jamaica, then what is KFC at its core? Does it have an identity beyond adaptation? Or is its identity precisely the ability to adapt? This is where the story stops being about food and becomes about philosophy. What does authenticity mean in a world where everything is remixable? Maybe the answer lies in history. Colonel Sanders built KFC on the promise of Southern hospitality and home cooking. That story, the image of the white-suited man serving fried chicken to his neighbors, is what gave the brand its roots. But as the world changed, KFC stopped selling just a taste of Kentucky. It started selling something more abstract. The feeling of indulgence, of togetherness, of comfort in whatever form each culture defines it. And perhaps that's the real secret recipe. Not the 11 herbs and spices, but the willingness to let the meaning of fried chicken change without letting go of the bucket that holds it. But the deeper you look, the stranger it gets. Because KFC doesn't just adapt flavor, it adapts rituals. In some countries, eating fried chicken isn't even about the chicken itself. It's about what surrounds it. In the Philippines, for example, people often eat KFC with rice, not as a side dish tucked away in a corner, but as a centerpiece. The fried chicken is dipped into gravy, then mixed with spoonfuls of rice, turning the meal into something far more local than American. And for Filipinos, that's normal. Comfort food in the Philippines almost always includes rice, so KFC doesn't fight it. They embrace it. Then there's the Middle East. Here, fried chicken alone isn't enough. People expect flavor that bursts with spice, smokiness, and depth. So KFC adds things like zinger shawarmas, wrapping crispy chicken strips in flatbread with garlic sauce. They even offer special Ramadan meals, bundling chicken with dates, rice, and sides meant for breaking the fast at sundown. Suddenly, the American fast food bucket becomes part of one of the most sacred traditions in the Islamic world. And if you think about it, that's both shocking and brilliant. It raises another question. Where is the line between adaptation and cultural appropriation? Is KFC honoring traditions when it creates Ramadan bundles, or is it cashing in on them? The answer probably depends on who you ask. But either way, the fact that a brand built on an old man in a white suit now plays a role in religious and cultural rituals tells us just how powerful globalization has become. In Latin America, the story shifts again. Take Mexico. There, fried chicken isn't exactly a new concept. Street food stalls have been serving crispy chicken and tacos for generations. So how do you make KFC feel relevant in a place that already knows and loves fried food? You spice it up. KFC Mexico leans into local chilies, hot sauces, and bold marinades. They've even offered corn-based sides and local desserts to match. And yet, despite the local twist, it's still marketed as something special, something tied to the image of America. In a way, eating KFC in Mexico isn't about pretending it's Mexican food. It's about indulging in a foreign flavor that happens to wear local clothing. But now let's take a step back and analyze this pattern. Every culture defines indulgence differently. For Americans, it might be a greasy bucket shared during a football game. For Japanese families, it's holiday comfort at Christmas. For Chinese consumers, it's a breakfast of congee that feels both familiar and modern. KFC becomes a mirror, reflecting whatever version of indulgence the culture already desires. And that's why it works. It's also why KFC sometimes struggles. Because when it gets the reflection wrong, when the local version feels forced or artificial, people reject it. One of the clearest examples is in Israel. KFC entered the Israeli market twice and failed both times. Why? Because the core of the brand is fried chicken cooked in oil that doesn't align with kosher dietary laws. They tried to adapt, even experimenting with kosher-friendly recipes. But the chicken didn't taste the same. It wasn't the KFC people expected, and it wasn't the local comfort food either. It was stuck in between. And in that no man's land of flavor, KFC collapsed. This reveals something powerful. Localization isn't just about changing ingredients. It's about changing without breaking trust. People will accept a KFC egg tart in Beijing or a paneer wrap in Mumbai because those items still feel like KFC. But the moment the food stops tasting like KFC altogether, the brand identity evaporates. So what exactly makes something taste like KFC? Is it the seasoning, the crunch, the smell, or is it just the red and white bucket? Strangely, the answer seems to be all of the above. KFC isn't just selling chicken, it's selling an atmosphere, a sensory package. As long as the chicken feels crispy, indulgent, and wrapped in the Colonel's promise, people are willing to let the details shift. And yet, there's another hidden dimension to this story. Status. In many countries, Eating KFC isn't cheap. In Nigeria, for example, a KFC meal can cost more than what many families spend on food in a day. That means KFC becomes a kind of luxury, something you buy for birthdays, for celebrations, for moments you want to feel special. It's ironic because in the US, fast food is often associated with affordability. But elsewhere, it's aspirational. Walking into a KFC isn't just about hunger. It's about identity, signaling that you belong to the modern, globalized world. And that raises a fascinating paradox. In America, KFC is comfort food for the masses. Abroad, in many places, it's a marker of status. The same bucket of chicken carries two completely different meanings, depending on which side of the ocean you stand. Isn't it strange how a single product can flip from everyday to elite, just by crossing a border? Now let's peel another layer. If KFC adapts its flavor everywhere, then who really owns the food? Is the KFC in China truly American, or is it Chinese now? After decades of serving congee and soy milk, does it still make sense to call it Kentucky Fried Chicken? Or is it something else entirely, wearing the Colonel's face like a mask? These aren't just abstract questions. They strike at the heart of what globalization does to culture. Food is one of the most personal, intimate parts of our lives. It's tied to childhood memories, family dinners, religious rituals. When a global brand steps into that space, it doesn't just sell calories. It rewrites meaning. And perhaps that's why people argue so fiercely about fast food. Some see it as a form of cultural colonization, washing over local traditions with shiny American branding. Others see it as harmless fun, or even a celebration of cultural exchange. After all, is KFC colonizing Japan when it gives them Christmas fried chicken? Or is it just giving people what they already want? To answer that, we have to look at the mechanics of localization itself. It's not random. Behind every menu change, there are research teams, surveys, focus groups, and chefs testing recipes. KFC doesn't roll out congee in China because they feel like it. It's because they've studied consumer behavior and realized that Chinese customers want warm, familiar breakfasts more than greasy fried chicken in the morning. In India, they didn't just guess that paneer would work. They tested it, learned that vegetarian options were essential, and then built a strategy around it. This is the hidden machine behind flavor adaptation. Data. Global fast food brands collect enormous amounts of information about what people eat, when they eat it, how much they're willing to pay, and what flavors they crave. That data then turns into new recipes, new combos, and sometimes entirely new traditions. Which means, in a way, globalization isn't just cultural exchange, it's engineered cultural exchange. And yet, as much as this process feels calculated, the results often take on a life of their own. No one at KFC headquarters could have predicted that Japan would embrace fried chicken as Christmas dinner for generations. No one could have planned for KFC to become a luxury in Nigeria or a breakfast stop in China. These things happened organically, shaped by culture as much as by marketing. And that's what makes the story so fascinating. KFC isn't just shaping culture. Culture is shaping KFC right back. But here's a thought experiment. What happens when globalization reaches its limit? Imagine a future where every fast food chain adapts so much that no two countries look the same. Does the idea of a global brand still exist then, or does it dissolve into fragments? Could KFC someday stop being a single company and instead become a loose network of regional brands, all sharing a logo but nothing else? This isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. Already, KFC menus vary so wildly that a tourist could walk into 3 different countries and not recognize half the items. And yet that's part of the charm. The red bucket tells you you'll be taken care of, but the contents surprise you. That tension between comfort and novelty may be the key to why KFC thrives where others struggle. Because remember, not every fast food brand has pulled this off. McDonald's also localizes, yes, but it tends to keep its global core stronger. Big Macs everywhere, fries everywhere, that same golden arch flavor profile. KFC is bolder, more flexible, more willing to reinvent itself. And that flexibility may be why, in places like China, KFC crushed McDonald's in popularity. So maybe the real story isn't about fried chicken at all. Maybe it's about identity in a globalized world. We're all in some way like KFC. We carry our roots, our familiar bucket, but we adapt to the culture we live in. We change our flavors to survive, to fit in, to be loved. And just like KFC, we face the same question. How much can we adapt before we lose ourselves? But here's where the story deepens even further. Because when we talk about how KFC adapts around the world, we're not just talking about recipes and flavors. We're talking about memory, nostalgia, and identity. Ask yourself, why does fried chicken taste better when it reminds you of home? Why does a simple bite of crispy chicken feel so different depending on where you grew up? The answer lies in cultural memory. Take South Korea as an example. There, fried chicken isn't just a meal. It's a cultural phenomenon. KFC had to enter a market where fried chicken was already wildly popular, thanks to countless local chains. Instead of competing head-to-head with the authentic Korean fried chicken joints, KFC carved out a niche by becoming the global fried chicken, offering spicy sauces, local seasonings, and the experience of international branding. Yet the true magic happened when KFC tapped into Korea's social eating culture, pairing chicken with beer, known locally as chimak. Suddenly, KFC wasn't just fried chicken. It was part of a Friday night ritual, a way to gather friends, to laugh, to drink, to belong. And that shows us something powerful. Sometimes flavor matters less than the story that surrounds it. Meanwhile, in the Caribbean, KFC takes on an entirely different role. In places like Trinidad and Jamaica, it isn't just another fast food joint. It's beloved, almost sacred. The jerk-inspired flavors, the spicy marinades, the deep seasonings, they all resonate with local expectations. For many families, KFC isn't foreign food. It's their food, dressed up in American branding. In fact, KFC in Jamaica is so successful that some locals will tell you flat out, Jamaican KFC is better than American KFC. Imagine that, the export version surpassing the original in the eyes of its consumers. But it's not always about flavor alone. Sometimes the adaptation lies in the ritual of how it's eaten. In parts of Africa, KFC meals are often shared communally, everyone reaching into the bucket together. This mirrors traditional styles of dining, meals as a collective experience, not an individual one. The red bucket becomes a symbol not of fast individual eating, but of togetherness, almost like a family pot at the center of the table. And that subtle shift in how the food is consumed changes its entire cultural meaning. So we're left with a fascinating puzzle. Does KFC adapt to culture, or does culture adapt to KFC? The truth is, it's both. The brand bends toward local expectations, but once it becomes part of the cultural fabric, it also shapes those expectations in return. Japan never needed fried chicken for Christmas until KFC suggested it. China never saw fried chicken as breakfast until KFC served it with soy milk. These traditions didn't exist before KFC, but now they're inseparable from the way people live. But here's a darker side to the story. Because with every success, there are hidden consequences. Local restaurants, those small family businesses serving traditional food, often can compete with the marketing power of a global giant. In some countries, KFC's rise has pushed smaller players to the margins. When people choose the shiny global brand over the humble local diner, what happens to the culture of food itself? Are we gaining new traditions or losing old ones? And yet, the picture isn't black and white. In many places, KFC doesn't erase local food. It exists alongside it. People don't even stop eating their grandmother's cooking just because they go to KFC once in a while. Instead, it creates a strange duality. One foot in global culture, one foot in local tradition. And maybe that's the world we live in now. Not one replacing the other, but both coexisting in a messy, complicated balance. Now let's zoom out. What can we learn from KFC's global journey beyond food? Because in many ways, it's a blueprint for how all of us navigate a connected world. We want to keep our roots, but we also want to fit in. We want authenticity, but we also crave novelty. We want to belong everywhere, without losing where we came from. KFC's adaptation strategy is, in a sense, the story of modern identity itself. Think about it. If you moved to another country tomorrow, how much of yourself would you keep? How much would you adapt? Would you cling to your hometown tastes? Or would you let your diet shift toward the local spices, the local rituals, the local comforts? That's exactly what KFC does. It carries the familiar, crispy chicken, a red bucket, a smiling colonel. But it also bends, reshapes, and evolves. Just like us. And maybe that's why the brand fascinates us so much. Because it isn't really about chicken. It's about the human experience of belonging and change. The chicken is just the metaphor. So the next time you travel, pay attention. Walk into a KFC not because you're craving fried food, but because you're curious. Look at the menu. Notice the differences. Ask yourself what those choices say about the culture you're in. Why is there rice in Manila? Why is there soy milk in Beijing? Why is there Christmas fried chicken in Tokyo? Each menu item is like a cultural postcard, a little snapshot of what indulgence means in that place. And maybe you'll notice something else. How familiar it all feels, even when it's completely different. That's the genius of it. The bucket says home. The flavor says local. You're both a tourist and a neighbor at the same time. But here's the final twist. For all its success, for all its adaptation, KFC still sells a dream of America. The Colonel's face, the word Kentucky, the image of the South, it's all still there, no matter how many paneer wraps or jerk wings are added. And that reveals the paradox at the heart of globalization. We adapt, but we also hold on. KFC is global, but it's also stubbornly tied to its American roots. And maybe that's why it works. Too much change, and it loses identity. Too little change, and it fails to connect. The magic lies in the tension between the two. So what is KFC, really? A brand? A global experiment? A cultural chameleon? Or is it a mirror showing us that comfort food is never about the food alone? It's about memory, ritual, and belonging. Perhaps the real lesson isn't about fried chicken at all. It's about us. About how we adapt, how we change, and how we carry pieces of home with us wherever we go. And that, in the end, might be the true secret recipe. Not just 11 herbs and spices, but the ability to become something new without ever letting go of the bucket that started it all. If you enjoyed this journey into the hidden world of flavor and culture, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Because there are more stories waiting about food, history, and the invisible threads that tie the world together.